all that hooping and hollering for football, man. I don't get it. I don't 100% get it.
Well, how do you think we look to those people?
I mean, I know, like, to be, like, excited for something, sure. I get that. But, like, why are we yelling?
You're saying that? You the guy, you... I don't know if you're casting or allowed to cast those stones, Tavin.
I mean, I get. What could you be referencing here, Connor?
Well, I could be referencing the yelling, the clapping in movie theaters.
I clap in some movie theaters, yeah.
The announcements at Game Awards when some game comes out, no way.
I get excited.
Oh, I get it's fine, but I'm just saying it's like it's all. Everyone becomes man-childs whenever their favorite stuff is involved. For some people, it's sports. For us, it's the better thing, video games.
It's the more elite thing. All right. Fair enough. All right. Let's, Connor, let's drop some sense on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 78. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host, Connor Elliott. Say hello to the people, Connor.
Howdy.
Connor! You're finally free from the grips of COVID once again.
No longer have to be confined to my room.
No longer.
No longer.
You're a free man.
Yeah, I won't lie. It's kind of nice. And you just play video games. No one can say, Connor, get outside. Connor, go do something else. They don't want me outside.
COVID, thankfully, doesn't hit you as hard as it hits some other people. As hard as it hits me.
No.
So, these 2 times you've had it in the last year, I'm not going to call it a vacation, but definitely not, Not the hardest thing to happen to you.
It could be way worse.
Could have had it like me, where I couldn't lift my head off of a pillow for a week.
Yeah, you're almost dead. You almost needed to be hospitalized.
Shit was tough. And I got scared because you went down, Phil went down, and another friend of mine went down, and I had spent time with all 3 of you on the same day.
Yep.
And I was like, well, this sucks.
Yeah, but Jordan's girlfriend Jackie got it, and he had to get tested. Alec, one of our D&D players, got it. Everyone's getting it. Michael got it.
Everybody's getting it. We got a bunch of people get it. This new wave is not playing around.
But, not.
Ladies and gentlemen, enough of that. Let's get right into the show. If you didn't know, this show comes to you every Monday, 8 a.m., youtube.com/2pennygamescast, and mainstream podcast services of your choice. Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Please drop a follow, drop a like, share it with a friend. It really does help. Remember, Spotify just recently added a rating system to their podcast, so please head over to the Spotify page, drop some 5 stars on us. Even if you don't even listen on Spotify, please just run over there and do that for us. Now, if you were wondering what this show is, every week, me and Connor come to you each with 2 topics, each with 2 pennies, if you will, and we each give you our 2 cents on them. Now, this week, Connor, let's get into it. Some interesting movements are happening. Movements.
I think it was an interesting work for
it was news. Indeed. Troy Baker's out here doing some wild shit. But we're not going to get into any of that until we see what it actually is long term. But right now, I want to get into Sony possibly shutting down some PSN stuff. Or some PSNow stuff, rather. So I'm pulling an article from VentureBeat.com by, where's their headline? Jeff Grubb. Sony is pulling PSNow retail cards from UK retailers. Gamers in the United Kingdom will no longer have the option to buy a subscription to a PlayStation Now at UK retailers. By Friday, January 21st, retailers in the country will have to pull PS Now cards from their shelves. This is according to messaging that is going out to stores like Game this week. Here's how the message from Game leadership reads. Quote, stores have until the close of Wednesday, the 19th January, to remove all POS and ESD cards from all customer-facing areas and update their digital bays in line with the week's upcoming commercial update. PlayStation Now is Sony's cloud streaming and game... Okay, we know this. We're going to get into that. Another quote. I've also heard that retailers in the U.S. and Canada began pulling PS Now cards from their shelves in online stores weeks ago. A PlayStation spokesperson had nothing to say about a new tiered PS Plus service. Quote, globally, we are moving from PlayStation Now gift cards to focus on our current cash denomination PlayStation gift cards, which can now be redeemed for PlayStation Now. So, Connor?
Yes.
This, in line with what we covered a few weeks ago with the rumored Project Spartacus, PlayStation's final answer to Game Pass. I think these are just the bricks laying down for a foundation that we are about to receive here in the coming months.
Just to cover for the margin of error, it couldn't be connected potentially, but in combination with the news we just heard recently back in December, it's most likely connected.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They're obviously wanting to have some sort of tier system related to whatever plan they're doing. Games Pass is probably a version of Games Pass is going to work in there somehow, we presume.
Yep.
So now they also have to account for PlayStation Now. PlayStation Plus, because, I feel like it's kind of strange when you look at something like a PC, and they've done, ways to play online, for example, without having to do any kind of special subscription service. So having something like that, in PlayStation, they do it good by giving us free games every month. They've done that for a while now, so there's an incentive to buy those subscription services. But, on the online side of things, we know that you don't need to pay a subscription just to play online. So them adding this extra content in there, something like Games Pass, even if Game Pass will allow them to, have a sort of subscription service that rivals their competitors. Obviously, it's not a matter of, trying to steal players over the other ones, because, we're leaning towards a space where we're not going to have to worry about what console or device people are playing on to do anything, connected together online. So, Sony seems to be entering into this new phase, and this is just one of their plays that could potentially be moving up behind the scenes.
Why are we bringing up how online play works for PC here?
Oh, it's just all connected. Because we have PlayStation Plus.
Yeah. Well, that is because online servers
plans.
on PC Play are dependent upon publishers on the publisher side, not whereas with PlayStation and Xbox it's dependent upon PlayStation and Xbox's server side for upkeep and so forth like that. So we have the subscription services for Xbox and for PlayStation, so that those can all run smoothly and run better, and their own digital storefronts can all run in tandem with everything like that, and it all runs a little better because back in the day before PS Plus was mandatory for online play. The PlayStation Now ran the PlayStation Network ran like shit.
PlayStation 2 era, those kind of days.
No, PS3.
PS3, oh, okay.
No, PSN came in with the PS3. Come on now, son.
Weren't online capabilities available on PS2? They just weren't as popular back then.
Yeah, it was just rudiment ways of playing online. You had to buy an adapter, you had to connect it to your Ethernet, and all that, and it was just servers. It was just kind of the Wild Wild West where servers had to be run through publishers and through other things to get it to even kind of work. Mm-hmm. So, and it wasn't the most solid thing. I mean, you can still go back and, all those things I believe are still working. But, who's playing those? No, not a damn soul. No, but to focus it specifically on pulling PS Now cards and unifying it into just PlayStation gift cards for the store, I think is a clear sign that, oh, hey, we're jumping straight into this, whatever this Project Spartacus is going to be called, this answer to Game Pass, this different tiered system, this restructure that Sony is clearly aiming to do that probably this year, with how quickly they're placing the bricks for their foundation here. I see this service probably going up as soon as the summertime, maybe. Probably after Horizon launches is when we'll start hearing actual talks about it. So all of this is great. Putting it all together, pulling it all together, all makes sense. My only thing is like, okay, how do you pitch this to your consumers who are subscribed to your multiple services? And when you eventually unify all of these things, how is that going to work? Mm-hmm. Again, it's a lot of wait and see here to see what they're going to do. But I'm excited to see how this strategy plays out with them, with their different tiered systems of. This tier gets you day one things of our own studio things. This one just kind of gets you everything from 6 months ago and back, and then this one is just your online play, yada yada yada. Arguably, it's all just to try and penny pinch and get as much out of your consumer as you can. But on the same flip of the coin, it's always nice to have more options as a consumer. So.
I'm really interested. I know that the tier system kind of complicates it, but I'm interested to see what the pricing is going to be like, because we know that you can do all of the Xbox Game Pass stuff on both PC and your Xbox console, whatever that is, for $15 a month. I wonder if that's what it's going to be like, or if it's going to be a little bit more expensive.
Well, in terms of PC, and we'll get into the PlayStation with the PC stuff later, none of it's going to apply to PC play. I would guess none of it will apply. It's specifically only on your PlayStation 4s, PlayStation 5s.
Yeah, that would make sense.
And then from there, in terms of cost, I mean, it's all like going to be bundled together, so we're already doing $60 a year, and then there's the 3 months and the 1 month pricings that I don't know off the top of my head. I imagine that's going to stay exactly the same, and then it's just going to be increased from there to, I don't know, $80 for tier 2, and then $100 a year for tier 3. I don't know. It's just a wait and see. It's definitely going to have to. I would argue the PlayStation Now as a streaming service, and then I to my understanding, you now can download some games through PS Now, but it's just you're gonna have to get rid of the cloud streaming stuff altogether to get this to work the way that you want as a direct competitor to Game Pass and to justify any type of price. I think that you're having to charge month to month in combination with PlayStation Plus. So yeah, we're a lot of wait and sees, but the it's coming. This Project Spartacus, it's coming. Everybody keep your eye out. We're keeping our finger on the pulse here. It's happening. So, moving on from there, Connor, that was my first penny. Let's move on to your first penny, our second topic of the day. Firesprite seems to have gotten some licenses for some Twisted Metal. So, this is a VGC article that we're pulling from Andy Robinson. Sony's Firesprite takes over Twisted Metal as Motorstorm director is hired. PlayStation's newly acquired Firesprite studio has taken over Lucid Games' unannounced Twisted Metal reboot and poached its game director, VGC understands. VGC reported earlier this week that Destruction's all-star studio Lucid had ceased development on a reboot of the classic Car Combat series. We now understand UK-based Firesprite, which was acquired by Sony last year, is the developer which has taken over the Twisted Metal project. It's unclear why Sony decided to move the project to its new first-party studio, but it's worth noting that Lucid and Firesprite are located barely 15 minutes from each other in Liverpool, UK, and there's now evidence of staff moving over. As spotted by a Reset user Matt Southern, the director of various Motorstorm games, plus the original pitcher for Drive Club, has this month left his role as game director at Lucid to take on the same role at Firesprite. It's unclear if Southern was working on Lucid's Twisted Metal project, or he'll be working on the new franchise at this new employer. Firesprite has multiple projects in production, including the newly announced PlayStation VR 2 game, Horizon Call of the Mountain. Sony announced in September 2020 that it had acquired Firesprite Studio, a studio established in 2012 by former members of SIE Studio Liverpool, after it was closed down by the platform holder. Prior to its acquisition, Firesprite had been recruiting for 2 titles, a multiplayer shooter and a quote, dark narrative adventure with genre-defining goals. PlayStation studio boss Herman Holtz said at the time of the Firesprite acquisition, quote, after a number of years closely collaborating on several games together, including The Playroom and The Playroom VR, I couldn't be more delighted to welcome Firesprite to the PlayStation Studios family as our 14th studio. All right, Connor.
Yes.
So it seems, I believe, was it last week we talked about Firesprite? It was last week we talked about PSVR 2 and Firesprite working with Guerrilla Games to get Horizon Call of the Mountain going.
Right.
It appears Firesprite not as much of a support studio as I was expecting last week, and in fact taking over one of our more seasoned IPs in the gaming space. Now the question is, what form does Twisted Metal take in this day and age? Does anybody care? And what could we potentially be seeing here in Firesprite as a whole? One, what would this start as? Is this a VR project, a combat car VR project? Maybe, who knows? Is this just your classic? Going to be a classic Twisted Metal reboot of some kind? What was 2? I've forgotten. I had to think. Oh, does anybody care?
Yeah.
You know, Twisted Metal is an old franchise, has always been around. It's been dormant for the entirety of the PlayStation 4 generation, and had 1 or 2 releases in 3, I think, with Twisted Metal Black, and I don't remember if there was another one on the 3, mostly a PS2 generation game. And I just does anybody care about car combat games? Because
I've never really heard people. I mean, that genre doesn't really have much going on right now.
You had a car combat game launch with your PlayStation 5, and nobody cared. With what was it called? PlayStation Destruction Royale or something like that. Google that for me real quick. So for me, I'm sitting here and I'm like, all right. Oh, Destruction All Stars. There's a little ad here on the site. Destruction All Stars. That was a flop. You put it out for free with PlayStation Plus, and nobody cared. Like absolutely nobody cared. So I mean, sure, Twisted Metal has more of a name to it than Destruction All Stars, but how much of a name? You know, it's been dormant for a long time, and I don't think anybody is like foaming at the mouth for a new Twisted Metal.
People seemed like they got what they wanted out of the games back when they first released, and no one's really demanded for something. I personally never have. I obviously have heard the name Twisted Metal, and I've seen gameplay from it, and how important it was back in the day. But its relevancy to people like me, around the age where a lot of people play video games, I don't remember it, so I don't really have much of an incentive to be so excited about this game. And obviously they think it has some sort of merit to it because they're now handing it over to Firesprite Games. It'd be nice if it can make some sort of comeback, but I can't think of many people in my own experience who would be interested in this game.
Neither can I, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. I'm
No.
sure there's Twisted Metal fans out there, but my thing is like, okay, cool. We've seen car combat done well and done not well. What are you doing? And this is where I think, okay, well, Firesprite, they play around with VR technology a lot, so maybe this is a VR car combat game, which would now you're making a lot more sense to me. Now it's like, oh, okay, now I'm in the driver's seat. I'm running around. I'm doing crazy things, and I'm blowing things up. Maybe it's a multiplayer, and you got multiple people in the same car, and you're in my passenger seat blowing up dudes with the bombs that are attached to whatever character and car that I have equipped, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, there are ways in which you could like refresh this and make it interesting. And I think putting it in a VR landscape would actually have some punch to it. But if it's just another Twisted Metal game, nah, we don't need this.
You've never played a Twisted Metal game before, have you?
I've not personally.
Yeah.
No. And then when it comes to Destruction All-Star Studio Lucid, this being pulled from them and given to Firesprite, and a bunch of staff and studio heads moving over to Firesprite, that makes me think, they're probably just gonna combine the two and put them together, in some type of merger. So we'll see. But it is interesting to see Firesprite just being given the keys to one of PlayStation's more seasoned franchises. So,
and the story does go on to mention that it's going to coincide with an upcoming TV series in 2023 of Twisted Metal.
Yeah, I'll believe that when I see it.
Which, if that is what they're doing, then it makes sense that they try to do some kind of VR game with it. That sounds like a good way to help market your movie along while having some kind of interesting game. Because a VR driving game, I obviously don't have a VR system, but I don't have there really been exceptional driving games, or are they kind of
exceptional?
Just like...
No, working ones, yes. Fun ones, yes.
Okay, so at least there've been some fun ones out there.
Or maybe I think maybe Drive Club went full VR and people liked that. I think.
Oh, okay.
So there are good examples of driving VR games out there. I think it was one of the early genres that proved its worth because you didn't have to move.
Yeah, makes sense.
You just sat in a chair. And then,
controlled the car parts.
Set up your nice little steering wheel and put your head in the cabin. So yeah, I think the only way Twisted Metal comes in any significant, with any significant punch is through VR.
Yeah,
but again, we'll have to see. Moving on. Topic number 3, Connor, your second penny of the day, and something that excites me very, very much. Respawn isn't canceling secretive third game after losing director. Again from VentureBeat by Jeff Grubb. Respawn is losing a creative director. Mohammed Alavi announced on social media that he is leaving the studio to pursue his, quote, next adventure. Alavi has spent his career at Infinity Ward and Respawn Entertainment, and he is best known as the designer of the No Russian level in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Most recently, he worked as creative director on Respawn's next big secret project. The studio does not plan to scrap that work, according to people familiar with the game. Publisher Electronic Arts expects it to launch in 2024 or 2025. Respawn has only ever confirmed small tidbits about Alavi's game. It is a third project alongside continuing development of Apex Legends and the sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. The studio has also previously said it is a single-player adventure. In addition to those details, I've learned it is a first-person shooter with AAA ambitions, and the design team is striving for mobility and style as guiding principles. The third game, however, is not a sequel to Titanfall. Okay, this is super exciting to me, because Titanfall 1 is one of my favorite shooters to ever hit the market, ever. I loved the first game. Really, really, really adored the second game.
Second game is fantastic. I'm kind of disappointed I missed out on the game when it first released. It's a good game.
Oh, it's a good game. Though Apex Legends is my personal favorite, like, battle royale on the market out there, and I think it's a really good game, and I really like playing it. I miss the mobility and the style that Titanfall had with the Titans and with the wall running and with the jumping around and doing the crazy parkour and acrobatics and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Which is just really missing from Apex Legends, even though Apex does ape a lot from Titanfall. Guns, and it's in the same universe, and there's characters in Titanfall, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
It doesn't scratch the itch, though. I played Apex around like a month later. I played Titanfall 2 for the first time. Obviously, they play similarly because it's based off the same engine.
It's the same shooting.
Yeah. But the mobility takes it to a way different level. And I think that's one of the best ways that shooters can stay in my mind as a type of game that I want to play, because having high mobility in shooters just feels good naturally if it's done well. So I was a little bit disappointed when it didn't seem like another Titanfall was coming out, but to know that those are the details of this game and it's not getting screwed over by somebody leaving is fantastic news. Doesn't seem like this is a
this is no reason for me to believe this third game is in any kind of trouble or anything.
No.
I don't quite know. People loved the Titanfall 2 campaign. I thought it was fine. It was fun. Had some good levels. Had some, moderate levels. But overall, a solid time. My thing is, can you make, in this day and age, can you make a single-player first-person shooter really stand out and really, capture our attention? I can only think of Doom and Wolfenstein as the only first-person shooters that are oh, okay, this is why I'm playing this game. But even Doom has a multiplayer mode. Nobody plays it, but it has it. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, Respawn, Respawn has the stuff, man. They've got it. Apex Legends is great. Both Titanfalls were phenomenal. Jedi Fallen Order was solid, if just a bit rushed, but it was it was a really solid Star Wars single-player adventure. And I'm very excited for the future of that franchise. So anything Respawn does, I'm down. Yeah, I'm there day one. Let's go. Especially if they're, kind of going back to their, quote unquote roots with the mobility and style stuff that is hearkening from that Titanfall thing that we all love, And I would assume they've learned a lot of lessons along the way. Titanfall 1 being multiplayer only, and then Titanfall 2 having a multiplayer mode or having a single player mode. And then Jedi Fallen Order being only single player, and then of course they're working on that sequel. So I'm hoping that this is really they've really figured out how to really nail their level design aspects and how to really tell a great narrative. I'm just curious as to how does it look? How does that work being a first person shooter, single player only, all of that stuff. Gonna have to find out.
Do you think there's a chance of this also having a multiplayer alongside it, or do you think they'd want to do a very narrative-focused game rather than an online one?
Studios also previously said it is a single-player adventure. In addition to those details, I've learned it's a first-person shooter with AAA ambitions, striving for mobility and style. No, I think it's going to be a single-player game. I think all of their multiplayer guys are working on Apex, and anybody who wanted to do anything single-player is either doing Star Wars or they're doing whatever this new game is.
That would make sense.
That's what I would imagine is what they're doing. Who knows? Who knows?
A couple years out, so we won't probably hear much news on this at all.
I mean, if they're expecting it launch 2024, 2025, we could hear about this year. We could. I'm not saying we will. You're more likely to hear about Star Wars first, and then maybe in the build up to that, announce this game, or maybe just after launch of Fallen Order 2 or whatever it's going to be called, announce that. Where's more Star Wars? I'm ready for more Star Wars. I think there were some rumors of it maybe being announced soon and maybe even being released soon, going around on the internets. But who knows? You know how these rumors go, man. You can't really take anything. I did hear some rumors, Connor.
Nope.
Little side note. Heard some Spider-Man 2 rumors. Insomniac.
Oh.
Very exciting stuff. There was maybe some potential leaks as to how things are going to play out mechanically in that game. Very exciting. Very interesting stuff. But the thing that caught my eye is, they have all the suits. All the different Spider-Man suits. The word is all of those suits are coming back, probably with some more and some new additions, which is very exciting because a lot of those suits are from the movies. And I'm sure it's tough to get those suits into the video games, but so you got all of your Spider-Man suits, and then you got all your Miles suits, and then all of those movie suits from all of the Spider-Man movies. And then there's going to be black symbiote versions of every suit.
Uh-oh. Maybe some story hints, possibly?
I'm ready. I'm excited.
Now, did those leaks happen to mention anything about how they're going to do the dual story of Peter and Miles? Did it say anything on that?
Yeah. To my understanding, there are story missions that the Golden Path story missions picks the Spider-Man for you. Mm-hmm. But all the side stuff, you get to pick whoever you get to pick who you want to play.
Yeah, that's good.
But when you're in the side stuff, both Spider-Men are in the field, and the other one is an AI-controlled Miles or an AI-controlled Peter, who is either out being stealthy and taking out dudes on his own, or if the shit hits the fan, they're also fighting out there and kicking off things. And then you can do dual. There was the finisher moves in those games, and you can do dual co-op finisher moves with both. So one will jump in and the other one will jump in. Very similar to a system they had in Arkham Knight for some of the side missions in Arkham Knight, where you'd be Batman and then Nightwing would come in and assist you on this side mission. And if you did a finisher, Nightwing would jump in and help Batman take down this goon, and then it would switch. And that's what I'm hoping they'll do. Is as I'm taking down goons, it'll switch. They also talked about, there was all these rumors. This is just like penny 2.5 right here. They also talked about whoever this leaker or whatever before it all got taken down. The symbiote is coming, obviously, with Venom. It's going to get onto Peter, and Peter's going to be hanging out with it for a little while, and then it'll come off of him and form Venom. Very traditional. But the way that's going to work functionally is Spider-Man is going to have these 4 symbiote tentacles that pop out. And he fights with those, and you assume the animations are going to be different. He's going to be a little more violent and a little more aggressive and all of that things, to just kind of feed into the symbiote storyline. But when he gets it off of him, in the announcement trailer, there's a quick shot, and there's a couple of promotional posters and stuff with him with the 4 mechanical arms, and they're saying that is the mechanical that is the mechanical system that they're introducing to. Because once he loses the symbiote and Venom comes and Venom just beats his ass, he then builds these arms to counter Venom.
Oh, okay.
And then that is going to be our big gameplay difference to Peter to match Miles's Venom power. They called them Venom powers, which I think is branding confusing, but his electricity powers and his stealth camouflage and all that stuff. And then there was also talk of reworked gadget systems and so forth. I'm excited, man. I'm excited. Anyways, just a bunch of nerdy Spider-Man stuff. Before we jump into our 4th topic, final penny of today, my 2nd penny of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, God of War came to PC this last week. And also, if you didn't know, we're playing God of War over at twitch.tv/2pennygames with my good friend Philip. It's his first time playing God of War. Every Tuesday, 2 p.m. Central Time. Hype, have you ever played? Where one of us shows the other a game that they've never played before. Phil is working his way through God of War right now. We should... It's complicated because I'm busy this Tuesday, so I don't know if we're beating it this Tuesday. We might beat it next week. But I was hoping we'd get to it faster than we did, but complications arose through Phil getting sick and so forth, so we couldn't get an after the hype review of God of War out this week alongside with the PC release, which is unfortunate. But, Connor, the PC days of PlayStation, far from over.
No.
And this comes from an IGN article that we're pulling by Adam Bankhurst. Several PlayStation studios asked to put their games on PC, God of War director says. Following the launch of God of War on PC, Sony Santa Monica creative director Cory Barlog has revealed that many of PlayStation's own studios helped convince Sony that it was a really good idea to bring its biggest exclusives to PC. Speaking to Game Informer, Barlog, who served as game director on 2018's God of War, was asked what insight he may have into Sony's decision to put a greater focus on the PC market. Quote, I think it was the collective of studios all over saying this is a really good idea, Barlog said. We should be looking into this. Eventually, I think it reached that tipping point when we had sent so many suggestion box suggestions that they were like, I'm tired of hearing all this. Fine, we'll do this. It's a process. We're still figuring it out as a company and as an individual studios how to do this and what the process and strategy will be. Sony's push into the PC market began in 2020 when it announced it would be bringing Horizon Zero Dawn Complete Edition to the platform, while other games that were either funded or published by Sony had already made their way over, like Death Stranding. Horizon was a true first-party PlayStation Studios game that would no longer be exclusive. Following Horizon, Sony released Days Gone on PC in 2021 and is gearing up to make Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection available to PC players in early 2022. As for God of War Ragnarok, Barlog isn't ready to commit one way or another and confirms the decision is ultimately up to Sony as to whether we may see the sequel arrive less than the 4 years it took the original to. Quote, I have no idea, Barlog said. Right now, we're taking it one game at a time. Kind of like looking at each one and determining, okay, is this the best thing? And we'll gauge how it does. Do people enjoy it? Did we do it right? Is there anything we did wrong? What can we do better in the future if we do this again? But at the end of the day, ultimately, it's Sony's decision. Hopefully, Ragnarok makes its way to PC, as in our IGN said, quote, this PC port offers some nice boosts over the PS4 Pro release. It scales well, and although impactful on hardware, it does give you the choice of increasing resolution, quality, frame rates, and even aspect ratio over what PlayStation consoles offer. So, spoilers, you put your games on PC, they can run better.
Mm-hmm.
Shocker. No, but
this is new to me.
God of War 2018 hit PC this last week. Seems to be doing very well. Everyone's very excited about it. Seems to be a really good port.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of accessibility options available. Lots of, you can play with your resolutions and ultra wide and all that fun stuff. Very jealous of some of that stuff, which is all great and exciting news. Really, where the news is that this is far from over. Sure, they're doing it bit by bit, piece by piece. I think we're going to kind of get into the formula of the first 6 months to a year, depending on what title it is, will be PlayStation console exclusive, but will make its way to PC eventually. I'll be damned if 2018 God of War is doing the numbers that I assume it's doing with the amount of fanfare it's doing on PC. I'll be damned if God of War Ragnarok doesn't come to PC at some point. Mm-hmm. Horizon Zero Dawn was very well complimented when it came out. I'm sure Forbidden West will also come to PC eventually. The Demon's Souls remake, I'm sure, is coming to PC eventually. Now we get a little complicated. Do we only do new stuff up to a certain point? Is Bloodborne coming to PC at some point?
People have been demanding that for years.
Are The Last of Us is coming to, is Ghost? No, Ghost is not on PC. Ghost, I assume, is coming to PC at some point. Mm-hmm. If Horizon went, why not Ghost? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even Days Gone found success on PC. So we're sitting here and we're going, okay, what does your format look like when you bring these things over? Xbox, as we know, brings them day and date to PC, and on Game Pass. So now that, in combination with what we assume Spartacus is going to be, how is all of this going to work? Are you eventually, I assume they will, are you eventually going to open up a PC branch of whatever your Project Spartacus thing is? Maybe. We're probably many years from that, but it's fun to hypothesize. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you mean. I don't know. The real question, as you said before, is how far back will they go? Like I mentioned a second ago, and you mentioned it. Bloodborne, people have been wanting that for years, but it's kind of an older game. Still relatively new, 2015. But do you want to prioritize the new sales of new games? And Bloodborne might be a special kind of game in that space because people, like I said, have been wanting it for a while. So it probably would make money. But
I mean, Uncharted 4, 2016, granted, coming with the package along with Lost Legacy in the what do they call it, Legacy of Thieves collection?
Yeah, something like that.
Coming to PC, which is cool and exciting. Does that mean the Nathan Drake collection is trapped on your PlayStation 4s and or 5s through backwards compatibility? So there's a couple of things. It'd be weird to only have certain entries of franchise and not the whole franchise.
I mean, you might as well just do them all at that point.
Exactly. You know, and why not? You're just making a quick buck off of all that. There's really no other reason to, especially now that Blue Point is in your catalog of studios as well. Like, yeah, put all those games over. Put the Shadow Colossus remake on PC. Why the fuck not? You know?
It's more money for you, and it's more convenient for people that don't have PlayStation consoles. That's always been the stance a lot of people take on it, because they want to play their games, and they don't want to be locked behind a brick that costs $400.
Exactly. My thing is allow people to play the games wherever they want to play them.
Yeah.
Me personally, I'm always going to play my single-player Sony exclusive things on my PlayStation 5.
You like those interactive triggers they got?
I do like those interactive. I'm very excited to see what God of War Ragnarok does with those triggers. I'm very excited to see what Horizon Forbidden West does with those triggers, you know? But at the same time, I am, you know, I understand that there's a huge PC market that would rather play it on their big, beefy machines where they can make the things run better than the PlayStation 5.
Don't forget about mods. Mods a whole other conversation.
Exactly. Why the fuck not? You know? Why the fuck not? You're always going to have a base of people who will buy your game and play it on your console, because that's a huge market that you can't ignore. The PC market's bigger, so why not? You know?
Xbox has done it.
Xbox is doing it
well.
and finding mad success with it, and you know, Xbox has the juice right now, man. They're the model to follow in terms of services and you know, just being able to play what you want, when you want, where you want.
And there's no law saying that you can't do the same thing.
Exactly.
Go for it. But that's it for the week, isn't it?
That is it for the week. And Connor, that means we can get into our fun little bit here at the end of the show called What We've Been Playing. Connor.
Yeah.
I've been playing quite a bit this week.
What have you been playing?
So I had started with some Horizon Zero Dawn. In anticipation of Forbidden West, I said, you know what? I don't really remember the story of Zero Dawn that well. I don't remember all the details. I remember a few bits. I know of the dual narrative thing going on. No huge spoilers here for those who maybe are working through it right now in hype for Forbidden West. But I remember the dual narrative going on. I remember thinking that was super genius. I remember having a lot of fun in the open world, hunting machines, doing all of that. Every time I came across a new machine, I remember it feeling like almost like a combat puzzle of like, okay, how does this machine behave? What are its attack patterns? What are its sort of like when it becomes more defensive? How does it behave? You know, so on and so forth. And then, you know, I remember some of its falterings. I remember some of the voice acting not being great. I remember some of the writing being a little generic. And now, as I'm, I don't know, 5-6 hours into my replay, all of those things remain true. I've yet to hit the point of that dual narrative thing that I was talking about. But where I am right now, I remember you saying when you played it last year that you were like, man, this story just isn't really doing a whole lot for me. And on my replay here, I'm like, okay, this is what he meant. Because in my memory of playing it, and it was a new game, and I was excited, and all the hype and stuff, and I was having fun with the open world and all of that, I had lumped in the story being great alongside with that. But until you hit the point where it starts peeling back its layers, ooh, it's not a great story.
No, it kind of drags on. You don't get answers to things all the time.
Dude, I don't even think it's well written. Like, the character dialogue is bad in a lot of points.
Characters would come in, and their characterization would just be so bland.
It's weird.
I wouldn't feel anything towards them.
I don't feel like there is distinct characterization of anybody.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it falls on the direction they chose with Aloy. Which it makes me even more curious and even more excited for Forbidden West to see all the shortcomings of Zero Dawn and how Forbidden West is going to answer some of those, hopefully, alongside with, Zero Dawn, unfortunately, came out the same month as Breath of the Wild. So there was a direct one-to-one comparison of those two games, and that's not really fair. Those are, both open-world exploratory games, but they play very differently, and they're both trying to do very different things. But now I'm sitting here, and I'm like, fuck, man, I gotta find the yellow nipple that's sticking out of the wall in order to climb this mountain. Yeah, in Forbidden West, I don't think it is. I think if my memory of the gameplay demo is correct, they're still doing the yellow shit that you can only climb on that, but there's probably more of it now.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, it would be really nice to just like fucking climb up a mountain that I know if I was there in real life, I could climb that. Why can't she climb this? It's actually some of the traversal is actually very restrictive, in terms of like, man, I feel like I should be able to hop up this thing. Oh, no, I can't. There's an invisible wall there. Fuck. Okay, let me go around. The stealth, I'm enjoying, but it is a little limited. I don't have a lot of options going on in it. But, again, man, it is fun to hunt these machines. It's fun to fight those machines. That's the best part. The world of Horizon Zero Dawn is great. It's just all the bells and whistles around your central gameplay that I think falter.
Which I think they really did seem to learn from it, because remember, the real big focus on when they show us content from Horizon, they don't really show us the how do you actually fight the machines. Partly because they want you to find that out on your own, but they already give us the spectacle of these great machines coming in and knowing that you're going to have a fun time fighting them. But what they focused on is fighting the human enemies and amping up the combat system, because whenever they would constantly throw waves and waves of enemies,
those human enemies are terrible. By the way,
not good.
I can't stand. Every time I fight them, I'm like, this fucking sucks.
Sometimes they'll also take up like way too many hits, so they're just dealing with one guy.
Yeah, why are you? You're a human. Why are you taking a headshot?
Yeah,
I know this. I know how an arrow works. It's hitting your head. You're right in the eye. What is happening? Also, again, I'll say, even it was a 2017 game, so 5 years later, that bow and arrow still feels great.
Oh, it's good. Yeah.
I think it's one of the best bow and arrows to ever grace gaming.
I won't lie, the rest of the weaponry in Horizon, I didn't really take to. The bow was a constant mainstay. I loved upgrading it every step of the way.
What I think is great is when you really dig deep into sort of like the RPG-like mechanics, or light mechanics of Horizon, putting in I've got the sling right now that has electric and freeze bombs on it. And so those are very useful. It's very much apply a status effect on a machine to get the advantage and get your arrows to do more damage, or get your arrows to be more effective, or put it down so that you can do a critical strike on whatever you're fighting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really more just ancillary stuff to complement the bow. Like you're right. The bow is the thing that's doing all the damage and doing all the work. But some of those bigger, more dangerous machines, you're a fool if you're only using the bow and arrow.
You gotta use that trip shot. No, not the trip shot. What's the one that
The
connects
tripwire thing.
Oh, it also sticks them to the ground as well.
The rope caster.
Rope caster, yeah.
Which, that's a thing that I'm sitting here, I'm like, all right, one of the really cool things about, with how, Breath of the Wild did with traversal, which is phenomenal, I can't even deny that, even though I don't love Breath of the Wild as much as everybody else. Traversal is great in that, and it looks like they're going to improve that. You know, Aloy has a little glider now that she can glide off mountains, but I'm sitting here and I'm like, one of the cool things about Death Stranding was that I could put down zip lines wherever I wanted, and they would stay there.
Aloy seems like a character that could do that, and it fit with the character she is.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, make that rope caster. Let me fucking shoot a rock and then shoot the ground, and then now I've built my own zip line.
Yeah,
you know,
very cool.
I do love how all of the resource management works in Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm constantly I don't like fast traveling, because it's like, well, if I fast travel, I'm not going to pick up all of the resources along the way to the next mission. So then I'm going to be short-handed in my weapons and in my abilities to and in my collecting health in my next fight. I'll be weaker, so I run around and I do all that. And granted, that does get old after a while, but I think all of those systems really play with each other very nicely. Again, the systems of Horizon Zero Dawn are great. It's things like just general direction of character and narrative where I go, this is not as good as I thought it was. A lot of the ancillary characters, not good acting. But even some of the main characters aren't the best actors either. And I think the choice to do the dialogue wheel was a faulty one. I think they should have just had a more definitive choice of Aloy. And this is who she is, and this is how she acts and behaves, and giving players agency in that character to the degree of which they do, I think is faulty. I think Ghost of Tsushima, granted it's hard to compare these two because that game came out 3 years later, Ghost of Tsushima did it very well, in which it just gave you two options, but both of those options were Jin. It was very much a Jin thing to say. It was just, which topic do you want Jin to talk about first?
Yeah, it was to explore Jin and his connections with other characters, really.
Exactly, which is again why I think, no spoilers, but giving the player a final choice at the end of that game, I think is a mistake. But regardless, but overall, I'm actually really having a really good time. But it is a thing that I hit a point where I was like, all right, I've had enough Horizon for today, and I put it down. Let's see if I pick it back up. I assume I will, but you never know with my dumbass. Also, what I've also been playing is I finally sat down and I said, you know what? It's a Death's Door day. I'm not. And dude, let me tell you what. I sat down in front of my TV for like 6 hours, and I knocked Death's Door out. Rolled credits. Fucking phenomenal game. For the kids keeping track at home, we did our top 10 games of 2022 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry, 2021 2 weeks ago. And Death's Door, I think, was at like 7 or 6 on my list. And even when I said it, I said, hey man, when I play more, I assume it's going to rise. Guess what, motherfuckers? It did. Put that bitch all the way up at number 3.
Really?
This game is fucking awesome,
What
dude.
was originally at the third place position?
Halo Infinite.
Halo Infinite. Okay, so it topped Halo.
Oh, yeah. No, Death's Door is really fucking good. Its boss fights are great across the board. They're challenging in some moments. There are some battle arenas that will put you through the paces as you learn different enemy types and how to handle them and how to kind of counteract them. The build and the progression in your character's power of your Reaper is fucking immaculate. It's perfect. The level design is great. However, I did find myself getting lost a lot. So I would have really liked some kind of map of some kind. Not like hyper detailed or anything, but just to be like, hey, this is rooms. There are rooms here, and these how they connect. These are how they connect. So that there were many times where I was exploring a dungeon, I died, and I went, fuck. What door did I go through to get there? I think it was this way. No, it wasn't this way. This is an entirely new room. Okay, well, fuck it. I'll go down here and I'll see what happens. And then I forget all about that spare room that I died in and so forth. So, all of that. But overall, really, really good game. So much charm in this game. I can't tell you, it's just charming all the way through.
Yeah.
It's a text-only game. There's no voice acting in it. And I read every text bubble. I never skipped anything. I was always like, this is cool. This is fun. I love the culture of this area. I love the jokes that this character is telling. I love the quirkiness of XYZ character and how that all built together. And I think that it's a pretty solid fucking story. It's pretty simple, but it's solid, man. It's a good time. And there were a couple of twists and turns along the way, and there's one specific payoff to a choice that they make when you die. There's a very specific payoff to that I think is really, really clever and really, really fun. And it was a moment in which, when the moment happened, I threw my hands in the air and I did, hey, that was cute, kind of a thing. So it's all really, really, really cool. I'm actually excited to even play more and fully. I want to 100% everything in that game, and I want to get the platinum trophy for it. Who knows? There's one trophy out there where you have to complete the entire game with the worst weapon in the game. I don't really want to do that, but we'll see, because some of those combat encounters were hard. And to use a weapon that I don't want to use, I don't know, man. I don't know, but I will say, the weapons, the useful weapons, because the one weapon is a joke weapon that they have the trophy tied to, but the useful weapons all have their own uses, and I'm very, very happy with all of them. So yeah, Death's Door, great game, absolutely, just a phenomenal game. Great music, so good, the music, woo, just charm flying out the wazoo with this game, just from everywhere. Level design, art direction, character dialogue, music, everything. It's just one of the most charming games I've ever played.
Yeah, I saw a bit of that when I witnessed you play it over back in Florida, just for a couple hours.
Yeah.
Definitely quirky.
Fun game. Connor.
Yeah.
That's it for me. But what, good sir, have you been playing this week?
Well, I'll start off with something that I neglected to talk about a while back,
okay.
which was my completion of Demon's Souls, a game that I had never touched. It's the first game I got for the PS5, so I was excited to get my hands on it and see how it played. Overall, my experience with the game was fun. I had an entertaining time. I mean, I finished it in the span of 5 days. It started out as being probably one of the more difficult Dark Souls games, solely because for some reason I just couldn't get the gameplay down. It played just slightly different.
You could not get good.
I could not get good for a little bit.
Yeah.
And eventually it all clicked, and I realized, okay, maybe two-handing my halberd is the move that I always should be going for, rather than trying to use some kind of shield and attack one-handed. With that tactic did not work, and some weapons definitely are made to be wielded a certain way. Whereas in later Dark Souls entries, a halberd and a shield, well, obviously still not optimal compared to two-handing a weapon, which you have the capability of doing. It's still, more effective than this older entry, Demon Souls. Now, it definitely is the precursor to Dark Souls because there are some issues. The first being the linear nature of the game. So Dark Souls obviously is known for having a lot of interconnecting pathways, optional areas that feed into one another. This one is separated in a weird way where there's these archstones that take you to different areas.
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah.
They take you to different areas that all have their own thing going on. There's the
Granted, there were some. It would basically take you to a level.
It would take you to a level, yes. But the level was only pretty much a straight jump. I thought at one point in the poison swamp area that Dark Souls is always known for, it looked like in the beginning of that area there was an alternate way to get where I needed to go. Turned out it wasn't anything like, there was nothing special. It was just an alternate way that was just a little bit more difficult than the other way that I had been going beforehand. Which also led into a small complaint I had at that time, which is where traversal could be annoying with certain enemy types who would be waiting at a hole, after you've dropped down from it and just start wailing on you with attacks that stun lock you and can kill you.
You would explore the level and then fall victim to a trap.
No, not a trap. The level that I'm talking about, because it was only for the specific level. I had to drop down different levels, like holes in buildings.
Oh, okay.
And when I would drop down, there'd be enemies there, and if I just wasn't angled right enough to get my shield up right away, I'd get stun locked into a rapid movement of hits, and it'd kind of potentially just kill me. And this was the main way I was getting to where I needed to go, and I quickly realized, okay, I'm just losing unnecessary health that's hard to avoid, as opposed to the other, a little bit longer way. So, moments like, that wasn't really my gripe with the overall level design of Demon Souls, because that never really happened anywhere else. It was just that first spot. But going back to what I was saying before, it just feeds you in the straight and narrow. There'll be milestones where there's a boss you have to defeat to unlock that bonfire to continue on farther into the mission. So it was kind of, every single mission played out that exact same way. Every single level played out that exact same way. Which, one of the reasons why I played Souls games is because of all the numerous ways that you can get about the level and the optional places you can go. Whereas this one, you maybe just take a left instead of a right, go a little, go into a room and there's a chest or there's some item there. And I take it there. And that's it. And you just go back to the path that you were taking before. So, very much different from what I'm usually expecting of Souls games. And it's an area that they definitely improved upon and needed to make Dark Souls games a lot more fun. The bosses overall, a lot of experimental ones. Like, there's ones that are only beatable by, a certain weapon that you have to get when you enter the boss arena.
Oh, fuck that.
Yeah, there's another one where you kind of hide from the boss to activate these, giant harpoon guns to skewer them.
Okay, that's kind of cute.
That was better. And it had spectacle as well. One of the enemies, one of the bosses couldn't see you because he's blind, so he actually had to feel around for you, and when he got a beat on you, he would just go berserk, start attacking that location.
Oh, that's interesting.
That one did well. There was a couple gimmick bosses that were exploring with what they can do with the boss, the boss program. The other thing they focused on with those boss fights is the location mattering a lot. And in one case, that made for the most difficult boss in the entire game, who constantly accidentally hit you down off the map because it's so narrow, to being able to... There's another map where you just get away. You can get away from the boss and basically do hit and run attacks. And it makes him easier than he already is, because you can also just stay up on him and wail him, and your plan's going to work. I can't really think of any other Souls bosses in the future where you can just do that and be completely fine, unless you prepare for it in advance. So fighting bosses that did that, and there were a couple of them, definitely was them just trying to send some feelers out about what they can do and if they should implement them in later games. And as it turns out,
figuring out their formula here.
Yeah, and they didn't take a lot of the stuff they were doing in Demon Souls, with maps being just as challenging as the actual bosses themselves, and doing gimmicks for their boss fights. They just obviously went in the way of having an enemy that has a certain moveset that you have to dodge, you have to read, you have to block, and then get in with attacks that way. That's obviously the route they ended up going, because the best bosses in Demon Souls operate off of that and not the gimmick aspect, which could make some boss fights pretty boring and, unremarkable, which is obviously something that Dark Souls is known for.
For sure.
Which I keep bringing up because it really did a great job of letting them experiment with things that they would do in later entries to create the games we all know and love. It is very important in From Software's lineup that this game came out when it did and did the things it did with the game. I mean, they obviously kept things like sorceries, pyromancy spells, miracles, but updated them, gave you more options to use them when you're going after the mission rather than just, use the healing miracle and then use the poison get rid miracle. And, maybe if you get it up all the way, you can do the one that does the big blast and drains your entire mana and you can't do it again. Which,
okay.
So overall, it really did a good job of preparing what has taken the gaming world by storm, which are these Souls games.
Now you revisit pretty much every From Software game. Yeah. Do you see yourself revisiting this one?
That's the other thing. No.
No?
Yeah, I played it. I appreciated the experience.
Yeah.
But the bosses were lackluster. I never found that many weapons I picked up I felt the need to use other than my starting weapon because they didn't seem to operate as well. Because I chose a weapon that had lots of high damage but was slower. And I switched over to a lighter, quicker sword, and boss fights would take forever to beat. Enemies would be harder to clear out. And the halberd that I started out with just ended up being my bread and butter. Whereas with other Souls games, you always want to try out what new weapons you have if you have the capabilities to wield them, because they could be the properties they have are way different than ones you've had before with other weapons, so it actually can lead to new play styles.
So just a proving ground for what would eventually become a From Software game.
And the enemies were fun, the bosses were fun. It was still a fun time, just not one that if the rest of the Souls games were of that quality, I would have drifted away at some point. Be like, okay, I played enough of these games, I'm done. But fun game.
Okay, yeah, there you go. What else have you been playing this week?
The other thing that I've been playing is continuing my Final Fantasy VII Remake playthrough. I think did I start it when I went on the podcast last week, or
you had started? You had started.
Yeah, I must have been only an hour or two in. Yeah, I probably started it the night before. So I got farther than that. I got to the Airbuster boss fight and fell down, met Aerith, which I was originally going to stop there and move to Yuffie's story, because that's obviously when it takes place, as you told me. But I just loved the interactions between Tifa and Cloud. I liked getting back into those again, so I played through more than I thought I did. But the newest thing that I encountered was I stopped playing that and moved over to episode Yuffie.
Okay.
I'm... How many hours? I think I was only an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes in. Yuffie plays great.
Lovely.
In subsequent games, I'm going to be really happy to have her as my party member.
I think it's like 6 hours long, the whole thing.
Yeah, I know it's not going to be that long. I'll probably finish it tomorrow if I have enough time to play it tomorrow as well as today. But she does like a lot of hit and run tactics and has the ability to access, at least with her first weapon, if you gain her skill, allow you to use elemental attacks that can be used to weaken opponents. So
interesting. In
later games, you won't always have to rely on putting some kind of elemental damage component on your sword, or use ability points, ATB, to cast the spells that weaken people. That character definitely made it a lot easier to exploit those kinds of weaknesses and make the gameplay run faster as a result of that. I just got the second member of my party, who you don't actually control, which he kind of operates on his own. I hope there's some way to get him to attack more, because he does have... You still can pause the game like always and choose what abilities he's going to use or spells, and you can equip materia and all that stuff on him. But it's hard for him to gain ATB, at least where I'm at right now, because he doesn't hit quick enough to gain it. So I'm like, okay, I need you to, cast this... Because you're more of my magic guy. I need you to cast a magic spell.
Okay, let's get it together, buddy.
Yeah, you don't have a bar. Okay, I'll wait here and try to distract them so you can hit them. But Yuffie plays, like I said, hit-and-run tactics, other besides the whole elemental weakness exploitation. The game kicked my ass when I first started it, for some reason. Because it plays... obviously, this is before you got to your second party member, your only other party member. I fought these wolves, just 2 wolves. And I was like, okay, random, easy encounter, be able to do it easily. They gave me very little room to actually make any errors, because they would do lots of damage and basically leave me in a position where I need to heal, otherwise I'm going to die, which ended up creating a cycle of, okay, I'm going to heal after I got hit by these guys, get away from them, try to charge ATB, and then do my actual damage output stuff. But then they would always get me again because they had such a small window of recovery after their attacks, and they kind of tracked onto you and pounced on you. And it was beating me up until I realized, it clicked after a while, I should stop playing this like Final Fantasy VII, where I can just get up and start mashing into them like I do with Cloud. In this one, even though you don't have a character like that, it expects you to work around Yuffie's class, which is, like I said, trying to get a couple attacks to fill up your ATB and back out of it as quick as possible. Wait for those really, really small openings to exploit them. Run away, do one of your abilities, which is usually the best way to do damage, or use the magic exploitation that it was presenting at that point to take out your enemies, rather than just fight them one-on-one. Because she is a ninja, and they made her play in the mind of a ninja, of one who has to be less of a confrontational character and more of a support damage character. Because obviously you have to rely on your other guy who uses a spear to take a lot of the brunt of the attacks.
Now, do you think... This kind of reminds me of how, sort of like how Red 13 kind of played with how you're talking about the support character here. Do you think we're going to see sort of a mix of characters joining your party that you can't control and the ones you can control, and we're just going to, like, maybe our core cast and then maybe some ancillary characters will hop in and hop out, you know, dependent upon your progression of story in part 2? And then a secondary question to that is these systems you mean of putting elemental damage on weapons. This is something you assume is going to carry over as well, and you see the transition probably going to happen in terms of what part 2 will look like?
Well, I think they're always going to be trying to get you to play as all the party members. That's something that really worked for Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I think the reason why they didn't do it here, with Red 13, because obviously you couldn't control him, but he is a party in the original one. He came near the tail end of the game, so obviously introducing his combat system.
And I think it's been revealed that they were intending on Red 13 being playable, and they just didn't have time.
Yeah, they just didn't have time. It was a simple matter of that. This secondary character, while he seems to be important for Yuffie's story, he screams as a character that's just going to leave next time. He's, in the game. He's not going to be...
And that's why I'm asking of, like...
Yeah.
Because there were levels in part 1 where it was like, it was just Cloud, or it was Cloud and Aerith only, or it was Cloud and Barrett only.
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be a moment in part 2 where it's like, okay, yeah, it's Cloud and Barrett, and then they have to team up with this third guy who's only in this level, but he's going to fight alongside you, but you're not going to control him because it's just not necessary or whatever?
Well, I think what they would do is, as you do main missions, they'll decide, Cloud and Barrett and Tifa, you're going to go and do this thing that we need to do, whatever it is that might be. And then Cloud, I think, will always be a mainstay in that. You'll always have him play.
It's Cloud's adventure.
Yes,
so.
except maybe for special moments in the game where he may be incapacitated or whatever. It does make sense that they would just, for main missions, force you to play with certain characters, and sometimes allow you to choose from your roster. Because if you're not doing those main missions, it would stand to reason that when you're doing
side quests... You think a roster choice is coming?
I think in side quests and exploration it will. Because,
maybe.
Obviously you don't want to be pigeonholed by your party, depending on what the story is demand that you do when you're doing side quest content. Because with that kind of stuff, you want to be more
in part
free.
1, they built the side quests around the idea of, okay, we're in this area, which means it's Cloud and Aerith, so we are going to build all of our combat in this area around the idea of Cloud and Aerith.
I guess that depends on how they're going to do locations in the future, because the world of Midgard's only going to get bigger. So it was easy to do it, when you're in this part of Sector 7, because the story is not going to make you stay there forever.
Well, and leaving Midgard, that's where things are going to get complicated.
Because then you have the ship as well that you inevitably get. Spoiler.
Yeah.
And obviously, that could be an area where you say, okay, this is where I make the decision of who I'm taking in this area. Mm-hmm. And then maybe it'll come in with the story and say, these characters have to be in here for plot reasons.
You're saying in the open world, the overworld, plus any maybe smaller towns and villages, pick who you want. But as soon as we hit a major plot point, it's okay, it's Barrett's time. It's a Tifa time or whatever.
Yeah, and maybe you just have to do one of those characters, and then you choose whoever else. So Barrett's some personal mission for Barrett. You have him. You have to.
Of course.
And then you say, yeah, I'll choose Tifa, and certain interactions will happen based off of that, or Aerith, and certain interactions will based off that.
That would be cool.
That would be cool. A lot of work.
They even implemented some choices in part 1, which and those choices did have consequences, super minor consequences. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to see if we're going to build off of those systems and maybe build to where spoilers for part 1 to where we can start divulging and getting away from that original narrative.
Mm-hmm. That'd be a good point to do that in. But
very interesting.
Yuffie's definitely there. It's kind of like a Miles Morales situation. They're introducing the character. They know we're going to want to get our hands on them later on because they are continuing to be important. And this is
still fun, still good, but probably not as good as the main game was.
No. Yeah, just because that lack of being able to control people and play who you want to play kind of limits it. But it is doing similar things where you'll be in an area and then you'll go to another area and that area is cut off. So you had your chance to do whatever it is you wanted over there, but now you're gone. So it's not like unlimited free roam like it was. Obviously the main game wasn't like that, but this one is sticking with that same way, that same more on-board narrative, on the rails type deal.
All right, very nice. I got to get around to that. Probably in the hype for part 2, I'll revisit part 1 and knock out that episode Yuffie for myself.
Yeah,
but. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for your 2 Penny Gamescast episode 78. Remember, you can get this show over at twitch.tv. I'm sorry, over at youtube.com/2 Penny Gamescast and mainstream podcast services of your choice: Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Please, please, please go over there, share, follow, rate, all of that fun stuff. It really does help circulate it and get it growing. And remember, I forgot to mention it at the top of the show. I kind of mentioned it in the middle. Twitch.tv/2 Penny Games. Hype. Have you ever played? We're continuing our adventure in God of War 2018 with Phil's first playthrough of it. Tuesday, 2 p.m. Central Time. Please come check that out. But until next week, have a great week. And Connor, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye.